Wait, hold on a minute. Before you make your website beautiful and functional, let's take a couple steps back. You see, before you make something aesthetically pleasing, you have to first focus on the story, the narrative. You see, with digital media, it's all about messaging and how it is that we're trying to communicate to our users, especially when we're trying to sell something. So today, we're going to talk about arguably one of the most important parts of the early phases in the design process. Let's talk about wireframes. Let's go. Hello, my name is William, and I'm the founder of Zabal Media, and we are a UX UI design and Webflow development partner agency. And we focus on all things from design all the way to development, and some animation in there to make sure we focus on moments of delight as well. With that being said, today we're going to talk about wireframes and why it's one of my favorite parts of the design phase. The reason being is because one of the most important parts that we can do for any project is try to get in the mental model of the client, the user. Because truly, I have never had one customer say, I will buy 10 of those products because the website is built in Webflow, WordPress, Wix, it doesn't matter, any technology. However, what they do say is, I'll take 10 because it's a great product and it's an easy, seamless experience of checking out or learning more about the product. And so what I'm trying to communicate here is that in many cases, it's not so much about the technology, it's more so about the creation of the experience that we have. And one of the ways that I like to explore different experiences is by going back to the basics, sketching. As you can see, you can use paper, pen, or in this case, I'm using an iPad. I'm exploring multiple options. And as we zoom in here, you'll be able to see one of the pages that I was focusing on. In this case, we were looking at the solutions page. I've categorized all of the different sections that we want to highlight, and I even went as far as highlighting certain sections like a block quote with a video that would take the place of that bottom section above the footer. Prior to that, it wasn't included, but I'm adding notes as I go. And as we zoom in here, the same applies for the home page and even the case studies page. While I'm doing all of these iterative cycles, I'm able to focus on what is the content that we're trying to communicate here, and how do we best communicate it to really land this idea of what the solutions are. The next step after we have all of these sketches is to then digitize them inside of Figma. Here is the digitized version of that sketch that we had recently created inside of the iPad. This app is called Figma. And in this app, we're able to take any type of design that was previously sketched on a napkin, piece of paper, whatever have you, and we're able to digitize it to wrap our head around the content that we're trying to highlight. However, one thing to point out here is that we still do take screenshots of all of our sketches so that we don't lose sight of some of the annotations that we created initially. For example, what are the tabs here? It's UX design, Webflow development, and Adalo development. And so as you can see here, those same tabs apply here. For the most part, this layout is pretty intuitive and self-explanatory. And for the ones that are curious about what this design looks like in its visual design format, once we approve the low fidelity designs, I'd like to take a quick second to show you. Here is the ready for development view. As you can see, in this phase, we apply all of the graphics, we make it beautiful. This is where we start to apply all of the visual design best practices to make the most visually stunning, appealing rendering of, for example, UX UI design. The way that we like to think about design is we take it a bit further, and I'd like to show you a quick visual of what an animated version of this looks like. Here's what this looks like inside of Webflow. As you can see, we like to animate some of these graphics so that they're not just static renderings. We try to take things to the next level to make it feel alive. The same thing applies with the hero section of the graphic. These subtle animations, while they do look a little bit gimmicky, they do go a long way to show that the website is more polished than a static graphic that does not move. Let's actually take a pause here for a sec, because We've talked a lot about wireframes and low fidelity designs and visual designs, and that's all great, but in some cases, our partners are just time strapped, or they may not have the budget to commit to an end to end design strategy all the way to development phase. And that's okay, there's no problem. And usually, what we do when clients come to us with these requests is we try to understand, have you already purchased a template, or do you want us to find a template for you? And in some of these cases, we try to say, hey, let's figure out what are the most critical pages, so that way we can go into the template and see if there are components or sections that may work well for that content that the marketing manager may have. And so in some cases, we go back and redesign certain sections of the homepage, for example, or a product because it's a critical part of the business. And that may be a route that we go, right? It's a happy medium between buying something that's off the shelf, like a template, but then also having some of that customization element in there. One of the things that actually we're really proud of internally is that we've spent a lot of time creating our own internal UI kit. And so this is specifically for low fidelity designs. This allows us to iterate rapidly and really focus on 3 to 5 different ways of showing the same content. And so this is something that we recommend for partners that are looking to move super, super fast. But for the ones that have the time and the ability to invest assets and capital into custom jobs, we tend to go in that direction. Ideally, we make something that's custom, that is focused on your particular business case. However, with that being said, we understand and we have to be mindful and flexible with the people that we work with. And that's why we have this UI kit available for everyone that we work with. Here at Zabal, we believe in time efficiency and productivity. This is why creating our own internal IP is critical. In this case, we got tired of creating low fidelity navigation bars, low fidelity footers, so on and so forth. And so we decided to create our own library. And this is the Zabal UI Kit library. No one else has this. With that being said, as you can imagine, there's no need to create multiple footers. Once you create a footer, most footers on websites are relatively simple. And so we took it upon ourselves to create multiple examples that scale to match the needs of most companies. Furthermore, we've made these responsive, so as you can see, depending on the amount of content that you enter, the text wraps around to create a space for that content to live. We've done the same thing for hero sections, logo sections, so on and so forth. Using this component library will give us a major advantage because now we can move 10 times faster than if we were to have to create all of these components from scratch. We don't always recommend these UI components, but for partners that are looking to move really, really quickly, this is the perfect solution for them. Now that we've looked at sketches that eventually turn into digital wireframes, which inevitably turn into visual designs that will live on a website or web page, let's take one step back. What is the whole moral of this story in the first place? And I often use this example because I feel so strongly about it. Wireframes are like bones in our body, and the skin tone and the clothes that we wear and the rings and watches, the hats, all of that is the visual design. But you see, without the bones, we have nothing because everything would fall apart. The same thing applies with the digital product or website. Without the wireframe, we're just making something that's beautifully useless. So when we focus on the wireframe, we create an intent for our websites and web pages. And that's, to me, one of the most important parts about making software, because it's not art, it's intentional, especially when you're selling something. So hopefully, going through this whole process has guided us a little bit more into formalizing our thoughts around how to create scalable software. And hopefully, a wireframe will be one of the first parts in your next project that you work on.